G'day, g'day, g'day. MathematicalKM here, and taking a look at the final round, round 9 of the Tuggeranong Open. And I was playing John Franze, a bit of a sparring partner from my local club. Right at the minute, John is rated in the classical 1482, and I am 1468, so just a little below. However, as we've had a bit of history at the Tuggeranong Chess Club, with the black pieces I've gone down twice out of 2 games. With me with the white pieces, I've had a loss and a draw. So yet to win against John, but let's see how we go tonight. So I've got the white pieces. Let's go for kingside fianchetto. Okay, and this is where I've deviated a little bit from Solomon, and I will be looking for some feedback. So he has talked about the only times you can't play the hippo, and I did want to make sure I get in with the hippo. And that means I want to guarantee kingside fianchetto is already guaranteed. And the computer doesn't like it, but let's be first in on the draw with the queenside fianchettoed bishop. So making sure I get, and strangely enough, this is the battle of the Sith, battle of the dark diagonal. So in many ways, I was wise to make sure I got that fianchetto in to get into my standard hippo setup. So let's just play through. And this is a slight deviation, and I've taken this from recently watched one of Solomon's videos talking about bishops facing each other and moving the rook to protect the opposing bishop is quite wise, because it stops shenanigans with the black knight moving to do whatever nefarious things it might want, leaving a bishop threatening my unprotected bishop. So let's just protect that bishop now. So it's adding one more move into the setting up of the thick-skinned hippo, which will go back one. That's like the first, like moving into an attack. And so I guess that's your 10 moves. And at that point, the clock, was it a short game? I'll tell you right now, it's only 25 moves. But was it a long game? Well, I'll tell you right now, the clock played a big part. How does that come about? Let's have a look. But 10 moves in. I've got 62 minutes, picked up 2 minutes, and my opponent has got 50. So I'm 12 minutes up on the clock, having hit the thick-skinned hippo. So the old thumbnail of the hippo using a clock is not bad. And usually there's a little bit more of an edge to black at this point, where we've taken no space and they've grabbed it. But anyway, let's move along. Now, why have I done this? Computer doesn't like it. But before castling, before moving that pawn there, before fully finishing, I ask you, where can this knight move? This knight can not go to any of those squares. It would be forced, if I was to move the g-pawn again, that knight would have to come to h5, and it would be threatened if I get the standard move of moving this knight behind the pawn, threatened by my knight and my queen, and it would only be protected by a pawn. So I could potentially win a knight, or win a pawn, get a knight and a pawn for a knight, and get my queen here in the face of the king, and he wouldn't have that king pawn in front of his king. So a little bit of a plan. Let's see how that goes. Okay, attention goes straight to the middle of the board. Hippo players love it. We lock it up. Computer really wants him to play h5, and it likes what happens if he plays h5. If he played h5, I don't think I'd do g times h5. I would no doubt move my g pawn to g5 and then my h pawn forward one and lock that up, and then we'd see how that went. But be a brave human being to throw his h pawn out there into that mess. And yeah, if he h5, if I was him, I'd take back with my knight and keep my pawns in front of my king and be able to... Yeah, no, not doing that, Mr. Computer. So instead I've done a typical hippopotamus thing, locking it up in the middle. Interesting times. This pawn has got one protector that I kind of don't want to move, and another knight who could come flying in, and a bishop. So 3 pieces. Don't really want to use that one. It's only got one attacker. I can just ignore that for now, pretty much. But let's say I want to... I'd like to win this pawn. This is what I'm thinking about now. I've got a knight, a bishop, and if this one comes across to the typical place, I'll have 3 pieces on the front of that pawn chain. Now, knowing that, got to get rid of the back of the pawn chain first, which is why we get one knight in position. So the capture the knight, win a pawn plan is currently it's available. He needs to give himself somewhere to go with that knight, but if he does, then I've got win that front of the pawn chain plan. Double plans. He's given his knight somewhere to retreat to. So the g5 push isn't really on at this point. This is. Oh, computer's starting to like my plans. That's interesting. Got to get rid of the back of the pawn chain. Then I've got 3 pieces on this pawn. Currently he only has a rook and a knight, 2 pieces protecting it. Shall we make that 3? Except this is protecting... It's reduced the number of protectors of that pawn down to 1. It's in the way of the rook. But it does give him 2 pieces protecting his d pawn. I think I'm going to explode the middle, but let's get His Majesty out of the way first. The pressure's building in the middle. So he's got 3 pieces protecting this back pawn. But let's change that. That h5 move, you players of the black pieces, don't be watching this. But knight to h5 now. Would I not be able to... At 2 pieces on h5, I could take his knight with my knight. He takes with the pawn. I get my queen in there, up close to his king. That would be a different game and an interesting one, but I'm certainly fighting. But the more human move, instead of putting it there to disrupt the pawns in front of the king and lose a pawn, he's thrown it back here. What does that do to the situation? Well, funny you should ask. He now, the pawn that I actually really want to get, has got only a pawn protecting it. That is all. And the pawn that is its great protector is now dead. He takes with his bishop. Now I've got 3 pieces on this pawn. Knight, knight, bishop. He's got 1, 2 defenders. And that all came from the g5 push, sending one of the defenders away. So let's cash in. He takes, I take, I take. He takes pawn here. Now, if that pawn were ever to shift, there's a rook lined up on my queen. So there's potential for badness. If I can ever get rid of that bishop, then, and this knight, just saying, there's a beautiful square there with a fork of king and rook. But for now, this pawn here has got 1 defender and I have got 2 attackers. Don't want to take with the queen because of fun and games and tactics, but there's no reason not to take with the bishop. What move are we up to? Move 20, just by the way on the clock. I've got 52 minutes, so I've used 10 minutes of my clock and my opponent is down to 30. So he's used half of his time and I've used 8 minutes. So the old hippo with the clock is a good thumbnail. Okay, so he's couple of things happen with that. The rook lines up on my queen, pins my bishop. Right now I can't move my bishop. It is protected by a pawn as well as the queen, but for now that knight's no longer stopping that beautiful square. And with any luck, we can get rid of that bishop. But all in all, I like the shape. I've got 4 versus 3 in the pawns and 2 on 2. I'm liking the look of everything else, and the random feature would be the queens. So let's move to c1. One of his best moves is to take. I take. And now with those queens off the board, I very much like the look of both of my bishops lining up on his only 2 pawns here, and I've got 2 pawns that could maybe come through if we get right to an endgame. That's nearly ready as an attack. This pawn's fairly well situated. If need be, I can give it some protection. The knight's protected by a bishop. I like my pieces more than black could say for his pieces. That bishop's not doing much, that knight's not doing much. But let's see. He throws his knight in. It's threatening my rook. I can't see that there is any checks possible with that knight from there. In fact, I believe there are not. So he's encouraging me to move the rook. Let's get a pig, a rook on the 7th rank. Now, if he doesn't, I wanted him to move that knight very much, actually, because if he doesn't take my dark bishop, I'm going to take his dark bishop. So however you look at it, getting my knight in there when the bishops are gone is a good move. But he does me a favour. I take back. Now, I would have thought, and let's see what move. I'll give you the clock at move 24. That's the move that's about to be played. Oh no, there we go. The clock is 50 minutes to me and 27 minutes to my opponent. Now I think right now he needs to go down the exchange, and let's see, rook takes. e4 is the second best move, and just getting the king out of dodge is even better. But white's still very much up. The thing about most humans don't like to go down the exchange, only natural, and there is Patzer sees a pawn. It's how I lost one of the games in the weekend tournament. a unprotected pawn. And I'm not going to call John, who's beaten me 3.5 out of 4 points in our matches until now. Don't think I'd rolled out the hippo before. Yeah, that wasn't the best move in the end. I guess he was feeling the time pressure and it was unprotected. My bishops were lined up on the 2 pawns over there. I could get a check and then the light bishop could collect this one. Or if he hadn't, it was all just looking good. But end of the day, calls it a great move. It's a move that we've been working to create the chance to play for some time. Check, forking the rook. If the king comes here, then taking the rook even comes with check. And I've got a rook on the 7th rank ready to clean up pawns. A rook basically protecting my king, and this bishop's ready to... It's at this point in time, my opponent quite wisely shook my hand and said, well done. So coming back, there will be a win for the Mathematical KM. 2 losses with black, and it will be a win or law and a dross with white. But into the hippo. And you could say the hippo is winning on the board, but it's very much... The final clocks were 51 to 21. That has to start playing on your mind if you're the player with 21. So, cheers to the chess giant. Bye for now.